Hi everybody, I'm Jared Johnson with Day Traders FX. Thank you for joining us today for our weekly webinar. This is my weekly outlook, my watch list for the week. Some things do change as the week goes on, but for the most part we stick to the plan and we try to follow everything that we talk about today. There are some plan A's and some plan B's in case I'm totally wrong, which definitely can't happen. So thanks for joining us. I hope that it is beneficial for you. It adds some profitability to your week, makes your trading a little bit more exciting, gives you a couple of extra trade ideas. That is definitely the goal. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy, and let's have a little quick look at a disclaimer to remind us of some of the risks of trading. Thanks everybody. So again, very welcome to everyone. Jared with Day Traders FX here. Remember, if you'd like a test drive of the trade group, by all means, go to that link, get set up. We'd love to have you. So jump in there and give us a try this week. I think this week is going to be very exciting. Probably and not probably at all hugely related to the interest rate news that we have this week. So we've got quite a bit of news coming this week, but you know, the most intense news that we're going to get and the craziest stuff is definitely going to be the interest rate news for the U.S. So that's coming Wednesday. We're going to have a live session for group members Wednesday at 11 o'clock. That is going to be just crazy, crazy town. And so we're basically just going to buckle our seatbelts, watch the charts, see what happens, and then see what we can trade afterwards. Because otherwise it's going to be just total madness. So we want to be real careful with that. But we've got some good some good news announcements this week that should keep the markets moving. I've found that going into the very last day of trading, there can be some pretty good stuff happening. So we're gonna be trading galore this week and next week as well. I'll trade right up into Christmas Eve. I'm not even worried about it. So there should be some good stuff going on there. Looking forward to that. I don't know if anyone else is on board with me here, but I think after this next dip on oil, I'm going to put a long-term buy position in on some oil ETF like USO or something and just forget about it for 5 years and see what happens. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff there. But oil continues to get hammered and handled, and it's lower and lower and lower. Stocks are up a little bit today. U.S. market's up a little bit. Oil down a little bit. Here's what I am most interested in coming up. I think we've got some interesting opportunities on dollar pairs for sure coming with the interest rate news. And I kind of want to see how everything plays out, and then I'll have some more setups on dollar pairs. I'm just not watching all the dollar pairs to start the week off, excuse me, just yet, because I think that we have a better opportunity, the day before the news comes out to really kind of assess where we should be trading things. But I'm always watching things such as euro, dollar, and dollar CAD, and so on. Some of these pairs that are really have been really volatile lately, and we've been able to make some pretty good profits on them. Euro dollar as of current, we had this nice big move up on euro dollar. It broke and it busted higher here. And then it's kind of slowed down and started to consolidate and so on. One thing that I'm looking at on this euro dollar is this is a big bull flag, and the price projection on this bull flag puts us into, if we look at kind of this movement there, 440 or so pips, that puts us, that puts us up into the 23% fib level, which is about 11300. That's absolutely a possibility. Remember, one thing that we've talked about quite a bit here in the group is that the 38% fib could get hit. If the interest rates are not raised on Wednesday, I'm absolutely looking for 113 to get hit at the very least, and I think 118 could get hit fairly easily as well on euro dollar. 118 is a totally reachable target if interest rates do not go up. If they just play it off and kick it down, till next meeting or the meeting after, I'm looking for 11800 to get hit. That 38% fib on the euro dollar, it's a perfect move, and it's setting up very nicely, and that's totally possible. Now, if they do raise rates, like is mostly expected. That's the expectation, is that rates are going to go up. There's still a tiny bit of skepticism in there, but if they do, then I'm just going to be watching things like this nice little rising wedge right here and seeing if this is going to, if we're going to get some breakout activity and for this to start running down and maybe give us a double bottom and retest some of these lows here. But nice little price pattern to keep an eye on. That's on a 4-hour chart. It's it's a little over a week long, so it's a pretty good level to work with. and I definitely want to do some stuff with this here. So we're going to keep an eye on that as we go. We had a nice little trade in the group this week, just a little short term, speaking of rising wedges and so on. We jumped into this guy last night. It ran, gave us a nice little 35 and 50 pip profit target on the way down. Just an easy, fun little trade to do. Worked out well. I don't really have anything on the longer picture on pound dollar just yet. I'm still watching 151, kind of this 15 to 50 zone, because I think if pound dollar can stay below that, then we have a pretty bearish picture. But if it can't, then the chop continues and it goes right back into an ugly channel that it's been in, and I'm totally staying away from pound dollar at that point. Now, euro dollar has this rising wedge, and dollar Swiss franc has this pretty excellently fantastic falling wedge. Now, I've begun to like the dollar Swiss franc again. I don't trade it very often, but I've started to like it quite a bit. The dollar Swiss franc came off of this huge double top, right? This massive double top. This was the high before the big dollar Swiss franc, or excuse me, before the big Swiss franc movement that pretty much almost put FXCM out of business and did put a couple other brokers out of business. So we went back and we tested those highs right there, and just fell right off that, a good little chunk, hundreds of pips even, 400 or 500 pips. But now the dollar Swiss franc seems to be kind of stabilizing a little bit, and it's coming back to some of this support, this 98.50 zone, and it kind of seems to really be bouncing around this area. In the process of doing all that, it's creating this pretty decent little falling wedge. And we've got some missed pivots up above, and 200 moving average targets that are starting to look interesting, and so on. And it's been coming out of this falling wedge kind of on and off over the last 12 hours or so, give or take. And so I think there's some possibility that we could start to see some euro dollar movement down and some dollar Swiss franc movement up. The dollar Swiss franc is breaking out first. The euro dollar has not broken out yet. The dollar Swiss franc is breaking out, and so it leads me to believe that could be a little bit of a preemptive warning of some movement to come. So I'm going to be keeping my eye out for some euro dollar shorts, just some small trades, while we wait for the news, because ultimately, who knows what's going to happen with the news. And I'm not going to even try to guess, but I'm going to try to have some better, tighter levels and setups, hours before the news comes out. But for the moment, I think we can start looking for some, shorter term trades, some 30, 40, 50, 75 pip trades, kind of anywhere in that area, as we wait for the news to come out. And this dollar Swiss franc, I think, is a good little warning shot for what the euro might do as well, and we could end up with some nice trading opportunities, possibly long dollar Swiss franc, possibly short euro dollar. So that could be pretty exciting. We've talked about the dollar CAD quite a bit. Oil seems to continue going down. The Canadian economy has some pretty bearish undertones and overtones and middle tones and sideways tones, and so on. So I think that this dollar Canadian pair has really made a nice run. We've talked about this several times. This double top here, there's about 134, 40, 50. It broke, and it really has not retraced. It's just kind of kept going. I made that video last week talking about expecting this to run up into 140, and I still think that it will, especially if we get any kind of bullish U.S. news. This will just be an easy jump up into 140, but I still would like to buy this if it dips enough, but if it continues running up, there may be some opportunities to sell it. But at this point, it will probably just run to that 140, even before the news comes out, if not with the news itself. So that's just one thing to keep in mind on that pair. Not really looking at too much on Aussie, New Zealand, those guys at the moment. I've got a few other things I'm focused on, so I'm sitting a little bit tight on those guys. But we will have some setups. We'll have some things to trade there. Just a quick little reminder on gold. Remember, excuse me, that gold is giving us some pretty interesting signals here. And thanks, good reminder. Definitely good reminder there, Patrick. Gold is giving us some little signals, and it's trying to bottom out, but then it just keeps on coming back down. I'm still looking for gold to break the $1,000 mark. If we get gold below $1,000, then I'm probably turning into a buyer at that point. And I think we'll have some nice opportunities to get long gold below $1,000. But as it stands, there's just a lot of chop and just a lot of bumping around, nothing too exciting there. So I'm kind of sitting tight on all those. But let's go real quick here to some of these yen pairs. I'm liking the yen pairs so much. We've had some trades. We've kind of been all over the place on the yen as this week has gone. The euro yen is, we talked about this last week and kind of this little channel we had here. The euro yen broke out and gave us a little move down of about 80 pips, and it's kind of coming back up. For me, 133.30 is a pretty important level on the euro yen, and it looks like it broke down below, and then it's just kind of really trying to decide what it wants to do here. I'm pretty much, as far as yen pairs go, I want to stay as best I can bearish yen pairs, but I'm not going to fight the movement too much. So you can see that we've still got a pretty decent bull flag on the euro yen. It hasn't exceeded our retracement area that we would expect. It almost retraced 50%, and then it's starting to pull back here just a little bit. So we may have a nice bull flag play out on this euro yen coming up, and I'll keep an eye out and be ready for that absolutely. But I still like this 133.30. So below that, which we're only 15 pips away, I want to stay short. Above that, I think we may start to see this euro yen, move just a little bit higher, run into a little bit of more resistance here, and then we may end up with another opportunity to short it a little bit of a higher price. But let's watch 133.30, and let's definitely watch the high of this flag, which is 134.50. Definitely, if we break 134.50, we absolutely should be long euro yen, but somewhere between 133.30 and 133.60 is also going to be probably a decent area to look for some short-term buys on euro yen. But I like this trade, and I think that there's some good opportunities to be short and stay short and so on. Dollar yen, I don't have much to say about dollar yen until the news comes out, so I'm going to wait on that one just a little bit. We have a trade currently in the group running on the Aussie yen, and I like this. I like this whole setup a lot. Obviously, with some of the Aussie news coming up and so on, we could see some slight changes in the works, and so that'll kind of affect things. But remember, the Aussie yen is really interesting because it has done a very good job. We can even just kind of look at this weekly chart here. You can see that 8,800 has been very significant. We've made some stabs at 8,800 many times over the last 5 years, really. 4 or 5 years, and so here it is below 8,800 again, and probably going to try to make another attempt at at testing that level and so on, and we'll see what the news does for us. But 8,800 is pretty significant. I like that we had a nice break of this rising wedge. It came back and it retested, and then it's just continuing down and down and down. So this Aussie yen for me is still a great short, still a great opportunity to stay short. Especially keeping in mind that 8,800 level. If it gets back above 8,800, it could, which it's not far away from. It's only 20 pips away from right now. If it gets back above that, it could be looking for a double top. It could be looking to retest the trend line once again. It could be looking to just move higher. You never know. But definitely that 8,800 is kind of a make or break point. I won't buy Aussie yen above 8,800, but I do want to be short below 8,800. So just keep that in mind. That's definitely an important situation there. New Zealand yen has been an interesting setup. Lots of crazy price rejection. We have this huge rising wedge on New Zealand yen, and this is kind of a tricky one. We had an attempt at breaking out of this rising wedge, and then we had some news, and that reversed this up a whole bunch, and then it's come back down, and it's back up and back down. It looks like at this point we have some pretty interesting levels and consolidations around the 80-80 area. So we can see on some larger charts here that it's kind of there's kind of some common theme activity there, and if this gets below 80-80, which again is not very far away, it's a little it's a little ways away, it's 100 plus pips away, but if it gets below that, I want to be short New Zealand yen like crazy. I think we've got opportunities for 200 to 400 pips of movement probably fairly easily. However, if it holds that 80-80, then this could be headed higher, and we may end up with something more along the lines of inverse head and shoulders pattern, something like that. We've talked about this a little bit as being a possible inverse head and shoulders pattern, which it might be. And if it is, this could run up a lot, and we may have some opportunities to trade that. And so we'll keep an eye on that. So we just kind of want to keep all these things in mind and kind of, remember what the important levels are and where the important levels are so that we can work with those and trade those and so on. So New Zealand yen looks pretty good there. I like that one. 80.80 is kind of the level for me at the moment. Pound yen is a pretty interesting one as well. So I really like, I'm looking for these yen pairs to move because I think these are going to be some of our biggest profit makers for the coming couple of, days and weeks and so on. I've talked about this quite a bit. We've got a big head and shoulders pattern on the pound yen. Big head and shoulders pattern. So this one is going to be a nice mover. If we can get this thing going and really breaking this trend line, which right now it's trying to test it and kind of bounce on this trend line, but if we can get it through this trend line, then I think that we're going to have a pretty good opportunity to really get hardcore on the sell side of this thing and trade this down for hundreds and hundreds of pips. I think there's going to be some real fantastic opportunity there. So we're kind of keeping an eye at this point on we've got some good resistance around 18400 and we've already got some entries. We have an entry just shy of 18500 on pound yen, and we've even scaled in again an additional entry here. So our pound yen trade is developing nicely, but we're going to keep an eye on this low and this test of this trend line right here, and we're also going to keep an eye on this 18400. We start breaking above this could start to push a little bit higher, but I think there's some really good opportunities on yen pairs. Right now, pound yen below 18300, New Zealand yen below 80.80. Aussie yen, as long as that stays below 8,800, those are all crucial, and Euro yen below 133.30. Those are all really important levels, and if it can hold below, if the yen pairs can hold below those levels, I think there's going to be some really big movements, and I'm really excited to be on the hopefully winning side of those if they do move. So I think there's going to be some really nice opportunity coming up there. So that's where a lot of my energy is focused, and I think it should be exciting. So let's talk about any questions you guys have about any of those setups, any comments. In the trading group, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these Aussie pairs and New Zealand pairs as the week progresses, but we're going to focus a pretty good amount of our attention towards some dollar pairs at the beginning of the week and yen pairs. That's kind of where I am on everything. So let's hear your questions, comments. Steve's got a good question about U.S. interest rates. How will that affect the yen pairs? It's going to be interesting to see. If rates go up, it's going to put pressure on the dollar yen to move down. It'll strengthen the U.S. dollar, but likewise it will also put pressure on the stock market. The dollar yen tends to follow the stock market pretty well, and we'll probably see some fairly generally similar movements across the board. Aussie yen will have some pressure, New Zealand yen, pound yen, all of that stuff with raising interest rates. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, questions, comments, guys, send them over. I'm going to get this recording formatting and ready to be sent out to everybody. But I love these levels and I love these setups, and I think we have some absolutely fantastic trading opportunities coming up this week especially. So let's be ready for that, and let's take it from there.